In this first part, we're going to be covering creating an array of 10 cards. In Alice, I strongly recommend making it a scene array. That way, if you have multiple procedures and functions, you can use them in all of them. I'm going to make it a whole number. The reason I'm making it a whole number, yes, there are some cards, Jack, Queen, Queen, King, and Ace, but if you make them string, you cannot compare strings unless you have a ton of if statements. So you could utilize jacks to represent as like the value 11. But my game, I only have cards ranging from 1 to 5. Okay, so here I have an array of cards, and I've got the values 2 1s, 2 2s, and some 3s, 4s, and then I'll have 2 5s, and that's all I have for my example. Okay? So that's it for creating the array. Now, remember, you want to keep it clean, so don't code everything in my first method. Create meaningful procedures. So, step 1 is complete. Step 2, I want to shuffle the cards. Okay, now I'll say this again, but your card game does not have to be like this, but this is a good way to keep track of your cards so you do not reuse them, which is a vital game of cards. Typically, you do not use the same cards, often. Or if you use the same cards, you do it in a certain way. So, I've got a procedure called shuffle. Okay? Now, in this shuffle method, if you remember from yesterday when we talked about how to do things, first, you want to get it working with just 2 cards. If I can shuffle 2 cards, great. I'm 80% there. So I'm going to get my shuffle to work with just 2 cards. So I want to take a card and move it somewhere randomly. So I'm going to choose a variable for random location, and I'm going to set it to a random number from 0, but not including up to cards.length. It's important that you do not include up to the length, because in the scene, the last location, there's 10 cards, but the last location is a 9. If we said including that last location, it'd be a 10, location 10, which does not exist. So, in this shuffle, I've chose a random location. Notice I'm not choosing a random value, because the locations are, I want to swap the value at the locations. So I can use the assign button to change the values in my array. So I can say cards at a certain location is equal to a new card. So let's do cards at 0 is equal to cards at random location. So what I've effectively done here is I've chosen a random card and moved it to spot 0. However, what happened was I've now erased what was at spot 0. So having a variable to keep track of what was there, I could say, remember what's at spot 0. So now, cards at spot 0 equals cards at the random location. Where should I put what was at spot 0? At what location? This random location. So now I can assign cards at spot random location So cards at random location is equal to my temp card. So what this does, I'm actually going to show you on the... So real quick, I changed this. Shouldn't it say cards at random location? It should say cards at random location is a temp value. So right now it works for 2 cards. All we need to do is loop this probably a good number of times. I always recommend you can loop it up to the card length amount. If you've got 10 cards, taking a random card and moving it to a random location 10 times would be perfect. So now we do have to decide what all we need in this loop, okay? If we did this, that we would still need to figure out every round we're getting a new random number. We're storing what's ever at spot 0. We're saying, okay, that 0 equals whatever's at that random location, and then swap it. So here, for testing purposes, we can have the alien say, like, the first value in the cards. So let's just test this out. If we call shuffle, it's a 2 versus a 4. 4, 2, 2, what? 3, okay, 4, 5, yep. So, you could probably test it a little bit better than that, but for purposes of time, we're going to move forward. Okay, so we've got the shuffling working. Now, we need to figure out if you win. So, I'm going to create a function for this, okay? I'm going to call it win. And if you have snake eyes, you win, otherwise you lose. So I'm going to have it return a text string. By all means, you can have it return anything you would like, okay? But I'm going to figure out if you have 2 cards, the top 2 cards, if they are equal to snake eyes or their sum is greater than 7, you win. I'm going to add 2 parameters. Card 1, which is a whole number, and card 2. Okay? Now, the great thing about win, I still need to figure out how I'm calling it, but given 2 cards, I can calculate how to win or not. So it's a very basic thing, okay? For this purposes, I'm only going to say if card 1 is equal to 1 and card 2 is equal to 1. I'm sure you can figure out if the sum is greater than 7. So I'm just going to say you win versus you lose. Okay? So I'm taking a quick shortcut for time purposes. Okay? So now in here I've called shuffle. And now win needs to keep track of what cards am I giving it. So maybe I have another method for like play game, and I need to keep track of what cards should I be sending to the win. So the alien can say the function for win. And now we need to figure out what cards am I sending, okay? Now we need to figure out the cards that I am sending, okay? So there is going to be some concepts that you'll need to figure out, but one important one is I really like having a variable for like card location. The idea with this card location is what it's doing is it's keeping track of what cards I'm currently using. So, in this play game, I can use card location and card location +1. So, if I were to play this again, what should I do with card location? What do I need to do? If I use card location, which is 0 and 1, what do I need to do to card location so that if I were to play game again, it wouldn't use the same numbers? Close, extremely close. You are correct. I do need to add a number, but it does need to be 2. Because if I were just using card location 1, then I would add 1. But I'm using 2 card locations. So round 1, it'll use location 0 and location 1. And then if I were to play the game again, it'll use 2 and 3. Okay? By all means, should yours look identical to this? No. But it is a way of using variables that will never get used again. All right, so he'll say it 2. Wait, why is he saying 2? Oh, right, that's because in the shuffle, he's saying it. Okay, so hardly any time will he... So after shuffle, or we should call the play game, and you lose. And you could loop this a couple times. You lose. Yeah, you have a very low chance of winning. And maybe the alien can even say card 1 plus whatever your card 1 is. And card 2, whatever your card 2 is. So card 1 is a 0 and a 1. That doesn't sound right. Oh. Okay. Good thing we tested that. Your card 1 should be cards at card location. Notice there is extreme difference between card location versus cards at card location. Cards at card location is a specific value in the array. 0 refers to the location. So here, your array starts off like this. But after it gets shuffled, it might be like this. So initially, the card at location 0 is a 3 compared to here's a 2. Then for the second game, I would actually win because ooh, snake eyes. Okay? So now when we hit run, it should work.